Up next, Armstrong Williams, but first let's watch him in action yesterday.
Everything in America is not always about race. Make these people earn your vote. If it's Donald Trump, so be it. If it's Bernie Sanders, so be it. Do not allow the Clintons and the establishment to waltz in here and wave their hand and everything is okay. Let them earn your vote, okay? I don't mind the hisses because you know the truth when you hear it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Armstrong Williams, host of The Right Side with Armstrong Williams, executive editor of American CurrentSee magazine and business manager for former presidential candidate Ben Carson. Hello, Armstrong.
Hello, Steve. Thank you for inviting me back.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on. I got to tell you, I was so proud of what you had to say. A tough crowd there. What was the reaction? We saw some of it there on the video, but what was the reaction after that going forward?
You know, it was quite encouraging to see how much the black community understands the games and the smoke and mirrors that the Democratic Party continue to play with them and blaming all their problems on Republicans and racism. And I was not terribly surprised, but of the thousands and thousands of people that sent emails and tweets and made calls, Steve, 92% were in agreement. They said they don't always agree with me, but it's so long overdue. I heard from the Bahamas, I heard from Europe. I mean, black people are tired of this racial pandering. They're tired of being cheapened. And I don't know if you get the full picture of this. You had the housing secretary, the labor secretary, John Podesta, and all these people during the entire panel discussion, all they were talking about is racism and Republicans. And when it was my turn, I said, racism is not the only thing that black people care about that impact their plight in this country. A strong two-parent household and stopping these out-of-wedlock births and single fathers in the household has far more impact on the outcome and of black people in their communities than anything close to racism. And how dare you allow these Democrats to come in your house and insult you and cheapen you and making you believe that you don't have to talk about terror, the refugee crisis, the housing crisis, the lack of jobs and opportunities, the lack of entrepreneurship, the overregulation, the refugee crisis, that the fact that you don't care about these issues, the only thing you want to hear is a conversation about race. You should be appalled. And while they may have booed and hissed in the beginning, the applause was resounding and respectful, and the comments when I was walking out the room was heartwarming and overwhelming.
And as you said, 92% of those that have been in touch with you agree with you that there's much more than just race, and that is so true. Yet the candidates, that forum, the candidates just pandered to this nonstop drumbeat of race, 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 race. Hillary did it yesterday. I'm sure Bernie did it today, and that's what they thrive on. So Armstrong, let me ask you, what do you think this translates to? What is the pulse now from the response you got there, the response you received since then, since you were there live? What does that tell you about the pulse of some of black America, and what does that mean politically going forward, at least in this election?
It sends a message much deeper than black America. It tells America that what Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are capturing in this country is not just with Democrats and Republicans and liberals and conservatives. Americans are up in arms. You would be surprised at the number of people who said black that they would support Donald Trump because they feel they're being hosed. Both the parties are establishment parties. It doesn't work for the everyday person every day. It works for their friends. It works for these special interest groups. It works for lobbyists. They want government to work for them for a change. And they believe that Donald Trump, while he may not always articulate the policies, sometimes he can be divisive and sensitive and can be very temperamental. They believe that Donald Trump is not in the pockets or owned by anyone. He will affect change, and they want someone who can affect change and can be their voice because they feel they're voiceless in this country in both parties. It also says that the Republican Party has a golden opportunity to tap into this black vote if they expand their tent, show them that they care, speak to these issues, and the Democrats have a serious problem. No longer can they assume that they can just cry racism in the theater, in the room, and blacks just get into a single file
Right.
and go to the voting machines and vote for them.
But-
Those days are over. It's a new day in America.
But Armstrong, as far as I know, not Trump, not Cruz, not Kasich, who I think are all in town, not one of them showed up. Were they invited? Should they have been invited?
All I can tell you this is that Dr. Carson was invited. He had to decline. I was invited, and I accepted. And I'm glad I accepted the invitation, because I do think is all you have to do is plant the seed, and something else will water it and grow it. And a seed was planted, and from the responses, let me tell you, the Democratic Party should not be so certain that her base, because she's dependent on the black base,
Right.
that they're going to show up and vote for her in November unless she earns that vote, show
Right.
respect, and give real policy and real initiatives that will move them forward.
Armstrong, great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Up next, folks, your phone calls, 877 Newsmax. We are coming back as the show continues.